Akhetaten's Gates, Chapter 34. Akhetaten was a very clever princess. Akhetaten often stated just how perfect a queen she would make. She was a very eager, yet not very frequent individual when it came to political affairs. But she did pick up political odds and ends to manage from her own palace, bringing her a great sense of personal achievement, pride, and a lot of respect from those who dealt through her. No one could deny her masterful presence. She was so much like tea in spirit that sometimes it was hard to remember that she was not tea. Her status in the court rose dramatically. A princess only had so much power, but a queen, that's another story. Being married to Akhetaten raised her status, but then he named her my equal. She was just as capable as I to carry out any aspect of queenly duties. In fact, sometimes she was more so capable. Obviously, this did not sit well with Kia at all. One afternoon, I was watching as Akhetaten knelt by the water, placing a lily in her hair. She hummed a little tune to herself, only stopping when she noticed Kia's reflection in the water, and the shadow loomed over her. "You are Queen Akhetaten? You are King's daughter and King's wife?" Akhetaten flung back her hair and glared up at her. "I am. Who are you?" "I am? Wait!" she gasped. "You're my father's imported sex toy. Perhaps you have come in the wrong color or size, or perhaps the wrong texture. He doesn't seem the least bit interested in playing with you. But then, why bother with you when I'm just as good? No, better. You, who has been trying to usurp my mother, have been usurped." "Such gall," Kia spat. "I am your stepmother. I deserve respect from a brat like you." "Respect?" Akhetaten laughed. "You? Oh, please. I do not feel an obligation to give respect to the lowlies. That is my prerogative. I outrank you." Kia let out a displeased hiss, standing up to Akhetaten and slapping her across the face. "Don't you ever talk to me like that again. You honor me as a mother." Akhetaten was surprised, and then angry. She narrowed her eyes into tiny slits. The inner tea had been evoked. She swung her fist around and popped a grand punch across Kia's face. "You are not my mother!" Down Kia went. She rubbed her face, trying to realize what had just happened. In the next instant, Kia was up and about to run off. However, Akhetaten would have none of that. She reached out and snatched her by her hair. "Oh no! If you're going to pick a fight, you had better damn well follow through. You may have been raised to be a pretty princess, but it's time you learned how a harem really works. Know where you stand in the hierarchy of females." With that, Akhetaten slung Kia to the ground and gave her one mighty kick, knocking the wind out of the crying girl. She regained herself and stepped over Kia to exit the garden with the air of superiority she felt was her birthright. I tried hard to stifle my pleased amusement. The little dog needed to know her place. Perhaps now she had learned her lesson. Akhetaten stopped short of me and gave me a bright smile and a hug. "Now this is my mother." "Nefertiti, I told you to leave her alone," Akhetaten scolded. Boy, does she ever have quite a welt on her face. You wouldn't believe. "Why, if you were there, did you not stop Akhetaten?" "I'm no longer responsible for Akhetaten or her behavior," I replied simply. I then smiled with such superiority. Perhaps it is hormones. Perhaps Akhetaten grows irritable due to pregnancy. He went quiet a moment, mulling over the thought in his head. Pregnant. He turned away in aggravation. That is all the more reason for her not to fight. Every pregnancy could secure Egypt. If the ambassador finds out about this undue cruelty, it could be quite bothersome. "Will he take her home?" I asked hopefully. "You are regressing to their level now. That is so unbecoming of a queen. You have to stop this." She brought it on herself, I insisted. She's a child. If she starts it, then you end it on a mature level. You do not end her. I have sworn to the ambassador to take his daughter as a wife and make her a lesser queen, below that of you and of Meroddaten, but higher than the harem brides. I have not yet consummated that marriage, and the ambassador may grow restless with the lack of news. Egypt has the world's most powerful army, Akhetaten, I said. You should not fear him. I am your true wife. I am your queen. I gave in to the idea of letting Meroddaten do as she pleased, but this is just something I cannot accept. Learn to accept it, he replied in a dark manner. It made me gasp in surprise, sending a chill up my spine. I will wait. Meroddaten will factor the final result. As I have always declared before, every child shall be precious to me, but if she bears no son, I must consummate the marriage between Kia and myself. You want her, don't you? I accused. You're so patient and tolerant with her. She's young and pretty. You're simply pacifying me. Be quiet, he roared, startling me. Believe what you wish. I am tired of defending myself from your insecurities. This stress will kill you. It would devastate me. Meroddaten too shall be duly scolded. Because of this, I shall also be forced to offer Kia some sort of comfort. This behavior is unacceptable, and I will not tolerate it from any of you. I had been summoned late. Meroddaten had indeed become pregnant, and carried rather close to term. She bore her father a sort of miracle. A set of twin girls. When I arrived, Akhetaten was desperately trying to soothe Meroddaten. She, not the type to cry, swung a punch into the wall and was too enraged to feel the pain. What's this? Princesses, she hissed. It's all right, Meroddaten, Akhetaten assured. It was a nice try, and I appreciate it. You did not have a son, but all is not lost. They are lovely little girls. No, she spat. Do not name them. I'll do it myself. Let them be but shadows of the survivors of Akhetaten. See them as Meroddaten Teshret and Akhetaten Teshret. He seemed quite stunned by her demand. If that will please you, Meroddaten. You want to please me? She asked. Meroddaten, I began, seeing this was turning dark rather quickly. But it was no use. She rushed forward, grabbed Akhetaten by his neckpiece, and pushed him into a cushioned seat. He let out a shocked yelp as she straddled across his lap. Get me pregnant again. That would please me. Do it as many times as it takes. I will not be defeated by her. Do it now. I swear with my dying breath that I will give you a son. Meroddaten, stop it, he shouted as she reached for his kilt. He grabbed her hands and restrained her, pushing himself forward and landing her on the floor where he pinned her down. Stop it! Enough! What is with you two? Has my family forgotten what it means to be a family? I am not some sperm god. My purpose is not to dispense of sperm on command. I am a husband, a father, and a friend. These things are important to me. You have all reduced yourselves to dogs, absently dropping puppies without taking any account for the consequences. Need I now go fornicate with that girl before your very eyes to silence all of you once and for all? Enough! Neither of you shall partake of me for a while. You both need to realize the value of sex. He eyed Meroddaten. No. On second thought, you shall not partake of me at all. Father! Silence, he commanded. You shall resume your place as my daughter. I will be generous and allow you to keep your courtly position of a queen. But this contest has to stop. My patience is growing very thin. Now that will be the last word on this matter. If you two can act as civilized human beings, we'll see about restoring your favor with me. Equal or not, a king is responsible for many a duty. You two will not be allowed to interfere anymore. One thing was for sure. Akhenaten put Merodachton and myself in our places. We had choked on our pride and suffered a well-deserved dose of humility. Merodachton, perhaps, felt it the most, but still felt a small sense of the bright side. She was, after all, his firstborn, his favorite child. She was still a daddy's girl. So, though no longer experiencing the intimacy of a queen, she could still experience his affection as his daughter, as she had always done. Soon, this pleased her just fine. I, too, soon learned to become a bit more contented. Not being with him gave me a lot of time to spend alone, thinking about his words and the consequences of my actions. I realized, no, I remembered just how much I loved him and why. He had obviously had words with Kia as well. I could only assume this was so, as she seemed much less obnoxious and more peaceable. My regret, however, is that I do not know what it is he said to her. On the one hand, it was none of my business, but that doesn't mean that my desire to know faded any. Kia didn't sit idle, however. Akhenaten was kind to her, and very hospitable, but often tried hard to avoid any of her advances. Aside from that, she often tried to lure him into dim or dark places to play coy and seduce him. She failed to realize the thing that I knew since long ago, that he could not see in those places. And over the years, he had become partially blind, seeing little and less more now. Sometimes, in such a situation, he was unaware of her presence at all. For a limited time, this was a sense of good news for me. But that small piece of fortune would not last. Kia was a clever fox, and it was only a matter of time before she would be able to formulate a plan. And she did. She was determined to win him over, and intended for me to bear witness. It had been so long since I had experienced my husband's body. I missed him. I longed for him. One night, I was fortunate enough to catch him in the corridor, and hoped to appeal to him. At first, he didn't seem particularly interested, but I was his devoted and well-educated wife. With a little coaxing and fine talents of my own, he forgave my childish persistence, and between bouts of passionate kissing and pawing to feel each other's bodies, we made our way to the king's chamber, the place I had seen none of for quite some time. Another embrace and a passionate kiss was spread between us before we opened the door. But the moment that I could see inside, I pulled from his lips and let out a scream. The room was lit rather dimly. On Akhenaten's bed lay Kia. She had somehow managed to convince the guards to allow her inside. She was sprawled naked, writhing with anticipation, rubbing her hands about her body and touching herself. "I have waited so long for you, my pharaoh," she purred, waving a lotus before her face. "By Aten," I spat. "Have you no shame?" "What's going on?" Akhenaten asked me quietly. "Will you continue to keep me waiting?" Kia whimpered. "My father has bid me to save my virginity for your highness. I was forbidden to see other men. I am so lonely. Please, do not leave me so cold. This loneliness wells me full of lonely tears." "Clever little slut," I muttered. Akhenaten couldn't see her, but had certainly heard her words and frowned sadly. I could see a sense of guilt growing within him. She was crafty in manipulation, wasn't she? "She's naked, isn't she?" "Shamelessly," I replied. A brief silence followed. Nefertiti. "Perhaps later." "What?" "She's right, I'm afraid, and this is not fair to her. In Luxor, in Memphis, I lay no hand upon the bodies of my harem, and I care not if men or eunuchs please them, or should the women therein please each other. Kia has been sent with a purpose. In a sense, I have stolen away her chance of living her own life. She is a slave to politics, and I pity her." "I cannot know," I pleaded. "I'm sorry, Nefertiti," he said shamefully. "I took her life away, and I must now make it up to her. No, you can't want her. Not the way that I desire you, but I can't be cruel to her any more. Go to your chambers. I have a political matter to attend to. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was choosing her over me. She was doing it in what had been our bed. Oh, how wicked and victorious her bratty little grin. The bitch. My choices were simple. I had three. One was to retreat, leaving them alone to fornicate. Two was to simply sit by and watch. That was not about to happen. There was the third option, which was to ignore my jealousy and swallow every last ounce of pride I had to try and make peace with Kia. I could be equally satisfied and create a new possible fetish for my husband if I bed beside her with him, allowing Akhetaten to work between the two of us. That was a promising option, but I could not bring myself to do it. I chose to retreat to the Queen's chambers. Only then was I able to release the pain in my heart through my eyes. I felt like I had been gutted. I hated her. I hated her! Did Akhetaten feel any shame? He said that he did. He acknowledged that his actions had hurt me in ways that he had never hurt me before. Still, I felt quite bitter. He obviously enjoyed his night with Kia, as he remained with her all night, neglecting to come to me. She must have had quite a talent. Or perhaps it was that I was so used that it refreshed him to be with the young and inexperienced. He never said so. In fact, any time I tried to bring up Kia, or anything related to her, he refused to speak at all. I had sent Akhetaten to stay with Meowing in her palace. I felt that such a decision was the healthiest choice for her, on many levels. Besides, Meowing's children were much better company than a bunch of tense courtiers. Kia was a beam of radiance. She had every right to be. She had every right to be, I suppose. She was pregnant. Bargain made, bargain kept, damage done. At least the worry was over. If she failed to produce a son, Akhetaten could finally send her to Luxor or Memphis with the rest of the harem, and allow her to be free as she pleased. It would be my husband and me again. All this nonsense would be put behind us, and we could go back to being our normal selves. Peace would descend upon the great house of Akhetaten once more. Until that time, Kia was remaining in Akhetaten and buzzing like a bee. Meowing had taken to avoiding coming out of her palace altogether when she received the news. She had too much pride to face that girl. Her own palace became her sanctuary, her own little world where nothing bad could happen. I was not so lucky. Still choosing to remain by Akhenaten's side and praying that his all-girl streak would continue a little longer, I stayed in the main palace. "The days of your limelight are growing short, Nefertiti," Kia stated, having caught me alone in the corridor after Aten worship. "When I birth my son from my loins, I will graduate to a higher status, and in time, to the new fertility symbol. Pharaoh will grow so pleased with me. I know, for I have pleased him many times. Do you know what he called me? Kia, of whom he loves. He said that he loved me, Nefertiti. It pleases me." "What does a child like you know about love?" I asked. "And what makes you so sure that you are carrying a son?" My voice was dark but calm. "That is part of my family line. Many sons, that is. Pharaoh can give me many, and he shall have plenty of princes to choose from. But don't fret. He has explained to me that my son must legitimize his claim to the throne by marrying a princess of your loins. So, I suppose your daughters and Merodaten's daughters are not so worthless." "What of love? This is all some political game to you, isn't it?" In the heat of passion, I would not expect anything less of Akhetaten. So used to having one wife all these years, to mind not his tongue in the presence of another partner. I cannot fault him for that force of habit, but dare you be unfair to him? Kia thought on those words. "Well, to be honest, I guess I don't know. But thankfully he is a very generous, talented, and gentle lover. I don't dislike him, but I suppose my love does not run as deeply as yours. You and I are very different, Nefertiti. I was raised for no other purpose than this. It had nothing to do with love, or for having any sort of mind of my own. It was just duty, the knowledge that I had a job to do, and should numb myself to anything but a sense of responsibility. I am honored, but not entirely happy. In time, perhaps, I will learn to love him, or at least be content with him. At worst, I will simply tolerate him numbly, and let him perform his right and duty upon me, of which I will satiate him duly with no consequence to myself. I will not complain of him, for he is all I have in this place. This was the way harem wives felt. Handfuls were sometimes chosen by fancy of the king, but many were political, like Kia, with no voice on the matter. They were used and forgotten. It was a sad existence, and they were doomed with the possibility of never being loved. Akhenaten's compassion was a real trapper this time. I knew Akhenaten when we were children, younger than you are now. There are many things about him that only I know. I fell in love with him, and until this mess, I was his one and only. No matter what he tells you, he will never love you as he loves me. That is not my concern. I have done what my father has asked of me. I just have to accept that love and duty are separate. In some ways, we were a lot alike. Our fathers used us as political tools. It was all a big, serious joke. In my favor, I truly did love Akhenaten and won him without coaxing him. Kia felt she was bound by the curse set before her. I still hate you for this, I whispered. I hate you for shattering my world. I hate me, she replied, much to my surprise. Why? I insisted. Why stoop to being such a horrible person? I never liked this idea, but I was willing to give you a chance. We could have been friends. But you are just so unbecoming. What was I supposed to do? She demanded. I wanted to cower before you. You were intimidating and I envied you. I was raised to be an image. How was I to realize that strong and aggressive women were to meet me here? As far as I was concerned, I was led to believe that Pharaoh was waiting specifically for me, and that I was to be his special favorite. I was led to believe that there was a chance I would be his queen. But then I arrive and am forbidden to show the due respect before Her Majesty. I was terrified. How am I supposed to compete with the likes of you? She turned away. But what difference does it make now? Don't you think that it makes plenty? If I have a son, will he not be sucked into political slavery? She spat. What good is a family if I cannot have it? The child will be born of me, but he will belong to Egypt. Not even Pharaoh will have the feelings for him that he holds for your daughters. My son is an object, and dare I bear him a daughter, I might as well kill myself. I could never face my father, and I would then have nothing. At least he loves you, Nefertiti. I'm just shit and garbage, and I hate myself for it. She stumbled back against the wall, sliding to the floor in tears. I had to debate with myself on how to react. But I finally let out a defeated sigh. You have a lot to learn, Kia. But perhaps so do I. If a son is born to you, I won't be able to avoid you. My offer of friendship still stands. It would do more to make peace than to continue as we are. I cannot erase the chaos that all of this has caused, and it is mostly my own fault. But perhaps I can share him. But only with one other. Queens of the past have managed, and so can I. Akhenaten is a man of much love, and I will accept that perhaps he has enough within him for all of us. She peered up at me, as if she had just imagined the things she had heard. Are you serious? Only if you can put a stop to your pompous attitude, I stated. I am still equal to Pharaoh, and therefore this is my kingdom as well. But for his sake, I want to keep the peace. With that, I offered my hand to help her to her feet. She was hesitating, as if waiting for the hand to bite or strike at her. Finding that neither would occur, she finally took my hand. "Agreed,"